Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Bassett Law District Council Virtual Audit and Risk Scrutiny Committee. Welcome everyone to this evening's Virtual Audit Risk Scrutiny Committee hosted by Bassett Law District Council. Given the current challenging situation, good evening, everybody, we all welcome to following the outbreak of COVID-19 Council. New legislation audit has been approved scrutiny that enables councils to host welcome everyone meetings to this evening's virtual rather than requiring members to be present in a committee chamber. Given the current challenging situation, good evening, everybody, we all welcome to following the outbreak of COVID-19 Council. New legislation audit and allows approved scrutiny that enables councils to host welcome everyone to this evening's very important requiring that members to be present here in the committee chamber. So given the current challenging situation, we all welcome to following the outbreak of social council doing so new legislation and allowing approved scrutiny that enables council manner. Welcome everyone to this evening's very important requiring that members to be present here in the committee chamber. So given the current challenging situation, we all welcome to following the outbreak of social council doing so and allowing approved scrutiny that enables council manner. Welcome everyone to this evening's very important requiring that council to be present here in the committee chamber. So given the current challenging situation, we all welcome to following the outbreak of social council doing so new legislation and allowing approved scrutiny that enables council manner. Welcome everyone to this evening's very important requiring that council to be present here in the committee chamber. So given that, well, we know he's about because he spoke earlier. Councillor Lynn Schuler.
Yes, Chair, thank you.
Councillor Ben Soffler.
Yes, Chair, I can hear you, thank you.
Thank you. We also have a number of officers in attendance this evening. Julie Fowler.
Yes, I can hear you, Chair.
Thank you. Linda Turner.
Yes, I'm here, Chair.
Thank you. The caster this evening is David Hill. Can you hear us, David?
Yes, I can hear you, Chair.
Thank you. Administrators for this evening's meeting is Ellen Hinsley. Can you hear us, Ellen?
Present, Chair.
Thank you. And Cara Hopkinson.
Present, Chair.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now, David?
Yes, I can hear. Thank you, John.
I don't know what the problem was, but there we are.
Right, okay. That's spot on. If a number of members lose connection and the meeting becomes inquorate or the live streaming for public viewing fails, I shall adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes to allow connection to be re-established. Given this is a virtual meeting, there is no corporate responsibility to detail a fire procedure as we ordinarily would. However, I would like to highlight that this committee is being live streamed on social media, so all participants, please be aware of your actions and take appropriate safety precautions from your place of live streaming. Please can I ask and remind members to switch off their microphones when not speaking. So we'll move on to the agenda. Agenda item number 1 is apologies. Are there any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Nichols.
Thank you very much, Cara. Agenda item number 2 is to receive declarations of interest by members and officers. Are there any declarations of interest by members? Are there any declarations of interest from
Not
officers?
received, Chair.
Right, thank you, Cara. Agenda item number 3 is minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of June 2020, pages 5 to 8 of your agenda. I will move around members in the alphabetical order to determine if they are in favour, against, or abstaining that they represent an accurate record. Please answer clearly when your name is called. Councillor David Challoner, I'm in favour. Councillor Calvin Troop.
In favour, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Gary Clarkson.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cliff Entwistle.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Jill Freeman.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor John Ogle.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lynn Schuler.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Ben Soffler.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 4 is the minutes for action and implementation. List page 9 of your agenda. There are none. Agenda item number 5, the outstanding minutes list, page 11 of your agenda. There are none. Agenda item number 6A is key decision number 830, budget monitoring and capital programme update to the 30th of June 2020, pages 13 to 40 of your agenda. And the officer to present this report is Julie Falger. Over to you, Julie. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so this is the Budget Monitoring and Capital Programme Update Report to the 30th of June 2020. If we can start with the General Fund, and that is on page 16. So members will see the table detailed at paragraph 3.7 shows that the forecast is for an overspend of £337,000 by the end of March 2021. Moving over the page, paragraph 3.9, the table there gives you a summarised analysis of the major factors that are contributing to the £337,000 forecast overspend. And you've got a more detailed analysis of variances greater than £10,000 contained within Appendix 1. If this forecast overspend does materialise, the impact would be to decrease general fund balances as at the end of March 2021 to 3.192 million. But members should be aware this is well above the minimum working balance of 1 million that we are required to retain. Fees and charges. So again, moving over the page to page 18. The table below, the table at paragraph 3.14, shows that the forecast outturn for Q1 is for an underachievement of £320,000. This is due in the main to the expected impact of COVID-19 on income receipts. However, I'd just like to make members aware that this is a forecast for income projections. Income projections are quite difficult to forecast at the best of times, but obviously with COVID-19, that's added an extra level of volatility into this forecast. Managers were asked to estimate the impact of COVID-19 into these income projections, which they did. However, not all losses were factored in during Q1. They have been built into the overall expected outturn, but they're not necessarily all factored into this table at Q1. So just bear that in mind, please. Moving on to the housing revenue account, the expectation for the end of the year is that there will be an underspend of £163,000 on the housing revenue account. if you look at the table on page 19 at paragraph 3.17, that details how that forecast outturn is made up by service area. Appendix 2 gives you a detailed analysis of the forecast variances that are greater than £10,000. The main factors that are contributing to the £163,000 underspend are expected savings on employee costs of £175,000 and then a net £29,000 pressure relating to COVID costs and losses expected within the housing revenue account. If this forecast does materialise, then the impact will be that it will increase the housing revenue account balances to 3.270 million. And again, this is well above the minimum requirement of 1.3 million. I'd just like to draw members' attention to paragraph 3.21, which details or tries to detail what some of the impacts of COVID-19 have had on these forecasts and estimates. So it is just worth noting that a number of assumptions have been used in estimating the impact of COVID-19 on the financial outturn, and that these could change at any time. The pandemic is an evolving situation, and therefore the financial estimates given must be treated with some caution. If we move over the page and look at performance management at paragraph 3.23, we can see there that a total of 10% of codes were not submitted by managers within the specified timetable. Moving ahead to the capital programme, looking at expenditure. The initial capital budget for 2021 was approved at 22.921 million. Table 1 at paragraph 3.25 shows the adjustments that have been made and approved to that programme, which increase it up to 33.552 million. Appendix 3 gives you the additions and amendments to the capital budgets that will require Cabinet approval for quarter 1. The capital expenditure for the year is forecast to be 32.054 million, and table 2 at paragraph 3.28 shows how the budget and spending is split between the general fund and the housing revenue account. Appendix 4 gives you an update on all the current capital projects, including the spend to the end of June 2020 and the forecast to the end of the financial year. In terms of resourcing the capital programme, table 3 at paragraph 3.32 shows how the current budget requirement of 33.552 million will be financed. Moving over the page again to page 22, capital receipts. The current level of capital receipts, as detailed in table 4, are very low, and this again is due to the current market climate. Moving on now to treasury management and borrowing. In this quarter, I can report that there has been no new long-term borrowing taken out by the council. I can also report that we've not required to do any short-term borrowing during this quarter either. As at the 30th of June 2020, the council held £98.863 million in loans. And the table at paragraph 3.36 shows the long-term borrowing that is outstanding as at the end of June 2020. Again, if we move over the page to page 24 and move on to investments. As at the 30th of June 2020, the council had a total of £0.520 million invested. And the table below in paragraph 3.39 shows where these investments were placed. Members will be aware that it was agreed by Cabinet in February 2020 that a maximum balance of £1 million could be held in the Barclays current account. This limit has been maintained during this quarter. The Bank of England base rate is currently 0.1%. It was reduced from 0.25% to 0.1% on the 19th of March 2020 in an emergency move to help control the economic shock of the coronavirus pandemic. Moving on now to prudential indicators. The prudential indicators are included in the Treasury Management Strategy, which was approved by Council on the 5th of March 2020. Moving across to page 25. During the financial year to date, the Council has at all times operated within the Treasury limits and prudential indicators as set out in the Treasury Management Strategy. The table at paragraph 3.46 compares the approved prudential indicators with the position as at the 30th of June 2020 and the projected outturn for 2020-21. And there are no issues to highlight to members on these indicators. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Right, thank you for that report, Julie. I will now go round members asking them if they have got any comments or questions. I'll start with Carolyn Troop, Vice Chairman. Have you got any questions or comments, Carolyn?
Yes, Chairman. Just to thank our finance officers for doing an excellent job, and to ask a question on page 37. Right. Okay. It's pennies for capital monitoring. First one. Bottom of the page, Retford train station improvements.
Sorry, Councillor Troop, I couldn't quite hear what you said. Sorry.
Right. Bottom of the page on page 37.
Bottom of the page, yeah.
Yeah. Retford train station improvements.
Okay, yeah.
Budget to 20,000, about 10,000 odd spent, and yet it says 99% complete. Well, that project isn't complete. We are waiting for CCTV cameras. Might be a different budget, that, I'm not sure. But there was supposed to be some landscaping also done on that section going to the subway, and I've not seen any evidence of that. So probably we could have an update circulated to people from Natalie Cockrell as to where we are at with this project. As it says, 10% finished, and I don't think it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. We will get that one sorted for you. Councillor Gary Clarkson.
No questions at the moment, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cliff Entwistle.
No questions at the moment, David. Thank you.
Councillor Jill Freeman.
No questions at the moment, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor John Ogle.
Yes, Chair. Performance management, page 20, 3.23. During quarter one, there were a total of 10% of codes that were not submitted. I just wondered, what is the timetable and why they weren't submitted on time? Is the timetable too tight, or have the officers slipped up? Just wanted a bit more background on that, please.
If you could reply to the question, please, Julie?
Yes, no problem, Chair. Yes, it's the timetable is generally quite tight in order to make sure that we give information in a timely fashion. It was particularly tight this quarter in order to meet the timetable for committee. And I think we do have to recognise that obviously people are still perhaps being drawn away due to COVID-19 and perhaps dealing with slightly different issues. So I think it's a mixture of things, to be honest. I think it was quite tight. So if officers they had, I think if I remember rightly, they had about 3 days window in order to complete. So if some officers perhaps weren't in the office during that time, or were on annual leave or something, they could have missed it then. 10% is probably the maximum of where we would want it to be. But like I say, it has been quite a challenging time for officers this first quarter. So we're hoping that will improve for the next quarter.
Can I just ask, Chairman, who chases that up, and whether they had to chase anybody twice? Did you manage to get the what you wanted after chasing it up?
Can you give an answer, Julie?
Yes, I can. Yeah. Part of our process for the budget monitoring is we do a fair bit of chasing of managers to ensure that, number one, they've completed their returns, and number two, that they're reasonable, because sometimes people will complete but perhaps they've missed something, or we might need to challenge something that they put in that perhaps doesn't look quite right. So there's quite a lot of interaction between finance staff and budget managers every month when they're completing their returns. So it's a constant ongoing process, and it is a process that we do need to keep on top of to maintain that engagement with officers.
So it sounds, Chairman, this is not a question, but it sounds like they're being chased up, and there isn't any problem there.
No, I think basically to support the officers throughout the financial department, from David Hill down, the impact that the council's had through COVID-19, and that the impact that it's reflected in the Q1 reports, it just shows you what an impact this pandemic has had. That as a council, it just has proven that things don't change on a month-to-month basis, like when Julie stated that to gather reports. It's changing on a week-to-week daily basis, because nobody knows what's around the corner and the dramatic effect that this pandemic is having on the council and the running of the financial team. But we're not just treading water. We have got our heads above the water, which is a fantastic thing to have. And it's by the hard work and dedication of the financial team to keep us in this position. We're very fortunate, i.e. with investments and things like that. We're a very tight-knit council, whether it be whichever administration it's ever been under. It's not just always one administration, it's about team working, and that's what we have proven, and that's why we seem to be going forward in a good in a good way. So take fully on board what the question that you've asked, John, and obviously sometimes we can chase things up. Somebody, if they're working from home, might have got bad connections and things like that. It's something that we are having to work on a day-to-day basis, and it's something that is being addressed. But thank you for that question.
Yeah, it's useful to know they're being double-checked. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes. Cheers. Councillor Lynn Schuler.
Thank you. I too had noted that paragraph at 3.23. So where we have the 10% of codes not completed, what do we put in place for the next time that they need to complete? Do we? I think Councillor Ogles actually intimated this, but do we have any regular offenders, etc., and what do we have in place to actually support the completion of this?
Thank you. Yeah, like I say, it's quite a well developed process within finance now. What happens is if somebody doesn't submit within the timescale, dependent on whether we need the figures to go to committee or not, that can sometimes affect it. But we might be able to give them an extra day. So we're constantly ringing and emailing them to see if they are able to give us any forecast. If they're not available, we will go to their head of service and see if they are able to give us any forecast. If we're not able to get those figures from either the officer or their head of service, then finance will use their best knowledge to estimate for them. So we don't just leave it with no estimate. We would put our estimate in on it. And then obviously that might mean that next quarter it does move a little bit because we're not always aware of everything, and that is the danger with finance completing it. But that is how the process generally works.
So there's not a regular meeting in with officers. That's what I'm thinking. So a monthly meeting, if they've got a quarterly return, do you not have a quarterly meeting booked in?
We do this month. This is a monthly. It comes to Cabinet quarterly, but it's a monthly process. It doesn't start till period three because of year end commitments. But it runs from period 3 right through to year end. We have regular meetings with budget managers. Each budget manager has their own service accountant, so they do have regular meetings. And we do have the twice yearly, they normally are, portfolio holder finance meeting with them as well.
Yeah, that's really reassuring. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Ben Soffler, have you got any questions or comments?
It was just the intent of the COVID grant income. Was that intended to cover all our costs? Because it clearly falls rather heavily short to the tune of nearly £500,000.
Can you answer that, Julie, please?
I can probably answer that better, Chair.
David.
Thank you, David.
Yes. Well, who knows? I mean, the government did initially say that they were going to fully compensate all councils for the impact of COVID. Up to yet, we've had 3 different grants, 3 tranches of a grant to cover the loss of income. And as you say, we're about, well, we just had one last week. Well, I had notification this morning that it will be paid in August, another 200,000. That makes our shortfall overall about 700,000, 690,000. We're constantly monitoring that, and it's really difficult because every month we get another set of figures on, for example, council tax collection, business rates collection, and we've seen a big drop in June's collection rates for business rates, but a slight improvement for council tax. Now, to extrapolate that for a whole year is very difficult. The quarter one is reporting a 337,000 loss because it hasn't got the 215,000 on. That would be back down to about 150,000, or 120,000, should I say. But that leaves us still short because the difference between the 690 and the 337 reported here is the council tax and business rates, which will not be picked up until future years. The way it works is through a collection fund. So the deficit in 2021 will not be picked up and hit our accounts until 21-22. So the government's intention was to cover us for all our grants, but we're quite short at the moment by about 700,000. We'll keep monitoring it because if the income does recover quicker than we thought, then it might not be as bad. But while the government may have said that, their latest guidance says that they're not going to cover commercial income losses, for example. Their argument is that if councils have had commercial investments, they've taken the reward, but they also must take the risk as well. Fortunately for us, we haven't got any hefty investment incomes. The only investment income we've got is the investment sort of overnight income that you saw in the report, the 25 million that Julie reports on. That was only been hit by the bank base rate coming down to 0.1%. So we've had an estimated 50,000 plus loss on that. But again, those rates are beginning to creep back up again now. So yes, we're going to take a hit, and we're going to, on the last return that we did, and we do monthly returns to government, there was a question about what available reserves we've got, which is clearly looking at how we can contribute as councils towards that loss and not be fully funded by government. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, David. Is that okay for you, Ben?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, David. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just basically, obviously, as well as we all know, the weekend that's just gone on I think it was the Saturday, central government has obviously handed so much local government, such as Bassett Council, Bassett has got to take responsibility, whether it means a lockdown similar to like what's happened in Leicester and things like that. So that could have obviously an impact on the financial side of the running of the council, which obviously puts pressure on, i.e. the finances, and people are going to turn to the council for. So all these things have all got to be taken more or less into account just in case, because we never know what's around the corner. That's why I said it seems like that we are running on a day-to-day basis at this moment in time. But let's hopeful that things will, turn the corner, as we said. So now I will move on page 14. Could members please respond if they are in favour, against or abstaining? Please answer clearly, only when I call your name. Thank you. Councillor David Challoner, I'm in favour. Councillor Carolyn Troop.
In favour, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Gary Clarkson.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cliff Entwistle.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Jill Freeman.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor John Ogle.
In favour of the recommendations, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lynn Schuler.
In favour, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ben Sofflet.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you. Now move on to agenda item number 7A is Corporate Risk Management Q1 2020/21, pages 41 to 50 of your agenda. And the officer to present this report is Linda Turner. Over to you, Linda. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the Corporate Risk Management report for Q1 and provides members with an update on the changes on the Corporate Risk Register for Q1. I'll go through the changes since the last report with you. The first one is the welfare reforms on page 42. So the changes really for this one is just to update you. The risk level remains the same. If you remember, at the end of last quarter, this risk was increased to a red risk from an amber risk, mainly to do with the COVID-19 implications. But just to update from last time, there has been 5,200 discretionary council grants paid to date. This is assisting as it reduces the council tax liability. Collection is down by 0.5% up to the end of May, and this will continue to be monitored. It is a high risk area, and the full implications of COVID are ongoing and not fully known, but increases the likelihood of loss of income to households. So this will be continuously monitored. Data risk number 2, data loss and cyber security. This risk has had a full review since we last updated members, and it's actually now been redefined as information and data loss. The controls have been reassessed and further control measures have been identified and put in place, and these are detailed in the report. For example, we need to ensure that all staff have completed the online data protection course and a review of all data protection reps to ensure roles and responsibilities are understood and that they have completed the specific module on the e-learning system. Enhancements are going to be put into the Office 365 operating system to ensure extra security around emails, and all security breaches are being logged and reported to corporate management team. COVID-19 has actually led to the majority of staff working from home, which requires a further review of potential or new risks, and these will be updated for the next meeting. Risk number 3 is the long-term financial integrity of the council. Again, this is a high risk one. The changes since the last meeting, just to update members, the loss of income due to COVID-19 remains to be monitored, and it is so being done on a daily basis, along with council tax and business rates collection rates. Based on April and May's income losses, it's anticipated there will be budget pressures for 2020-21 of 905,000 on the general fund and 200,000 on the housing revenue account. At these levels, the council's reserves are able to cover these pressures, but the position will be continued to be monitored and further updates will be brought to the next meeting. At the moment, we're confident that we're doing everything we can to monitor and mitigate the financial risks. However, due to the unknown and uncontrollable factors, the risk score remains the same as high. Moving on to page 46, the council's inspection programme on tree management. An update on this one, the tree management plan is now in place for parks covering the high risk areas, and that tree mapping software has been introduced. Further work is required to include all tree assets within the housing and estate service areas, but a subgroup has been set up, they have met and they've identified and planned the way forward for the housing sites, and areas have been prioritised and they'll be reviewed on that basis. Interviews are scheduled as well for the vacant post of senior technical officer, and they'll take place within the next few weeks. Moving on to page 47, the health and safety compliance in council housing stocks and other council-owned premises. If you recall, this is a result of the Grenfell Tower fire disaster. There's been a lot of work introduced into this, and a number of controls have been put in place. They've been summarised in the report. Just to highlight a few, we've appointed Savills as the new fire risk assessors. Fire risk assessments are due to commence shortly across the housing stock. Compliance management training has been arranged for 5 senior managers, and training for all staff will roll out over the next 2 years. There's an annual compliance report being prepared for Cabinet in October 2020, and that's going to provide an update on the action plan agreed by members following the compliance review in October 2019. They're the key changes since the last report was given. Any questions?
Right, thank you, Linda. I will now go around members offering the opportunity to make comment or ask questions, and this will be take the previous like the previous form in order. Obviously, Councillor David Challoner, as chairman of the Health and Safety Committee, I can tell members of the Audit Risk Committee, and I know Cliff sits on this as well, that the Health and Safety Committee, this is an agenda item as regards fire management, electrical safety. It all comes on our agenda, and there is obviously a detailed report at each quarterly meeting which goes to Cabinet as part of their agenda. So the council is really up to speed with the health and safety, and especially after the unfortunate disaster at Grenfell Tower. There has been a lot of work done on the housing stock, even though we do not comply to the legislation which has come in from the Grenfell Tower, because we do not have properties no more than, I think, 3 stories or 3 stories high. So there's a lot of things that we've undertaken from the Grenfell report and put in place anyway. But we do, at each health and safety, we do have, it's an agenda item, and it is gone through very thoroughly. So Carolyn Troop, have you got any questions or comments?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Gary Clarkson, have you got any questions?
No comments and no questions, Chair. It's all
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Councillor Cliff Entwistle.
I'm fine with it, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jill Freeman.
No questions, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor John Ogle.
I have a question, Chairman. Page 46, the corporate risk register tree management. Who is responsible for the tree management plan? Is it who we call the tree officer, or is it a technical officer from another discipline taking responsibility?
Chairman, Linda Turner has actually lost connection. I don't know if Dave Hill's able to assist.
I can provide some response to the answer, but probably not a full one, if I may, Chair.
Yeah.
Craig Taylor, who's head of neighbourhoods, heads a tree group, or I can't remember the exact title, but it's a tree management group that looks at all the aspects. If you remember, before we had inspections in our parks, and that was fine, but it wasn't expanded to cover the rest of our estate. So Queen's Buildings, for example, we have trees outside Queen's Buildings. It didn't include those. So we wanted a group that represented a wider body that could look at trees all over the district. And it wasn't just risk assessing the trees. Once they've been risk assessed, and if they've been assessed as red, then something has to be done about those. So we have put finances in place, and we have got a tree group working to look at trees around the area. But that tree group is chaired by a head of service, and that head of service is Craig Taylor.
You got your microphone off, John.
Thank you.
Right, thanks for that reply, David. Councillor Lynn Schuler.
Thank you. I'm just looking at page 43, and it's risk number 2, data loss. It states that a senior information risk officer is to be nominated. Where are we with that, please?
Would you like to answer that, David? Obviously, if Linda's not available.
I don't think we've nominated one yet, but I can't answer what the nature of that is at the moment. But we can find out. And we can circulate a response to that.
Is that okay, Lynn?
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you. Just on page 44 as well, the health and safety risk assessments. Have we increased the number of risk assessments carried out during the COVID? Because obviously there's risk assessments of people working from home, etc., and working in housing. So I'm assuming that that's increased dramatically.
Yeah, I can answer that one as Chair of Health and Safety. For everything that's being carried out throughout the council, there has been risk assessments done and updated as and when needed. Like, we've opened the markets again. Each one has got its own individual risk assessment. Also, the starting to open obviously with Queen's Buildings, because DWP will be opening as well via appointments and things like that. There has been risk assessments done which cover our staff because they'll be going into areas where our staff are operating, i.e. where the enquiries department or wanting to pay transactions by card and things like that. There are risk assessments all in place, Lynn, and they are updated if need be on a weekly basis by Jim Moran and Sue Bowler and the health and safety team.
Thank you. Then it's just to acknowledge that there's been a huge increase in workload for that. Thank you. Yeah, it has definitely, because at the last health and safety meeting there was four of the most important risk assessments. Each committee member received them and could see what was put in place as regards with the COVID-19 outbreak.
Chair, if I could just come in and answer Councillor Schuler's last question. The Senior Information Officer will be Steve Brown, Head of Corporate Services.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to let you know, Chair, that I think Linda's back in the meeting now.
Okay. Councillor Ben Softly, have you got any questions or comments?
Just around on item 1, with the migration from housing benefits in universal credit. When is that actually timetabled for?
Can you answer that, Linda?
I think I can answer that, Chair.
David, yeah.
There's the last tranche of people to migrate, because new claimants and people with change of circumstances automatically go onto universal credit, and that's accelerated the move onto universal credit. The final stage hadn't been timetabled in, and that was people with 2 or more children who would then go onto universal credit. That hasn't been scheduled in yet. But as I say, as people's circumstances are changing, then they're automatically going onto universal credit. So the process has accelerated, but we haven't got a date when it's all going to be finally done yet.
And do we have, we probably don't, but do we have details on the number of residents that are currently furloughed?
We don't know. We wouldn't have access to that data.
Okay.
Right, thank you for that. And just to add something to that as well, Ben, I think from a council perspective, and I think Dave will agree on this, that we could notice an impact after the 1st of August when the furlough scheme, which was set up by the government, finishes or reduces, and obviously as people are expected to return to work, we hope it doesn't happen because nobody likes to be made redundant or finish from their work, but obviously we'll be monitoring it, and we are getting things in place like David said, just in case we do have an impact on this.
Yes, because at the first they have to start paying 25% from next month, don't they? Yeah.
Right,
just if I could just add, you'll see in the report it says 5,200 discretionary grants have been paid. That is up from 800. That's up by 800 from the beginning of the month pre-COVID. Our estimated caseload was 4,400. It's now 5,200. So that gives you some indication of how much that workload's increased. Just if I can go back to Councillor Softlet's last question, we've got 13,100 people furloughed in the district. I wasn't aware we got those figures, but obviously we have. I've just been handed a piece of paper that tells me.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to all councillors for the questions and comments and contribution. It just shows you how very important the financial side and the importance of this committee throughout the council is there. I will move on to the recommendation on page 49. If members could please respond if they are in favour, against or abstaining. Please answer clearly, only when your name is called. Thank you. Councillor David Challoner, I'm in favour. Councillor Carolyn Troop.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Gary Clarkson.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you, Gary. Councillor Cliff Entwistle.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you, Cliff. Councillor Jill Freeman.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you, Jill. Councillor John Ogle.
In favour of the recommendations, Chair.
Thank you, John. Councillor Lynn Schuler.
In favour, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lynn. Councillor Ben Soffler.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 8 is in section B, items for discussion in private. I will now ask the caster or live stream will be shortly stopped as we move into confidential items. I would like to thank everybody from the general public who have been watching this live streaming of this meeting. I hope you have found it interesting and hope it has enlightened you on the financial running of the council and also the hard work that has been done through this pandemic time with COVID-19, and that we are there in any way, shape or form to try and help or assist. So if anybody does have any problems, we are there, and we have been operating the services from day one. Hopefully we haven't disappointed anybody because obviously we've kept as refuge and things like that, and everything has been done to the government guidelines to do with COVID-19. That includes social distancing and all things like that. So I would like to thank everybody who has been watching the live stream, and obviously if I can ask the caster 5, 4, 3,